Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race and Strategy Guide. We're off to Watkins Glen full course once again, and we are in the Group 3 machinery. Now I say once again because this is the fourth time we visited here, and it was just as recent as April this year that we actually did the same combination in the Group 3 cars. And given we did a time trial here recently, albeit in Group 4, and we're also visiting this track for this week's GTWS manufacturers with very similar settings, it does call into question once again PD's thought process when it comes to putting these daily races together. However, I've always said the settings do matter, and in this case we do have some fairly interesting settings, definitely compared to when we last did it. So we've got 10 laps to get around. We have tyre wear at times 6, fuel at times 1. We have the soft and the hard tyres available, both of which are going to be mandatory. BOP is on, damage is light, it's a rolling start, and slipstream is real. So yeah, the somewhat unusual thing for this one is that choice of having the soft and the hard tyres available, and both of them being mandatory. I'm struggling to think of another daily race C where that has been the case. Sometimes they do it in GTWS, but I can't recall them actually doing it in daily race C, and it will add to the strategy for this one just a little bit. So the first thing I wanted to work out was a hard tyre benchmark. I did that in the Nissan GTR from 2018, and basically I wanted to see how much slower are these hard tyres going to be compared to the soft tyres. And we did a 147.0 and optimal of a 146.8. So moving on to the soft tyres now, I want to see how much faster I was going to be than the hard tyres, and just how far I could go on the soft tyres before they degraded to a point where I would be slower than a set of hard tyres. And I also wanted to test, you know, if we completely kill the tyres and we're running around on no tread on that front left, which is what's doing the most work in this car at least, would we still be faster than a fresh set of hard tyres? So coming to the end here of lap 6, we've just done a 146.6, which is faster than any lap we did on the hard tyres, despite the fact that we had around about 15, or maybe 10-15% left on the tread. So yeah, I completely, well, a very worn set of soft tyres are still around about the same pace as a fresh set of hard tyres. But I wanted to carry on here, do the 7th lap with the tyre completely dead, just to see what would be the pace difference between a tyre that's like this and a fresh set of hard tyres. Because I did have a little bit of a fear that you would actually be quicker driving around on completely worn soft tyres than you would be, you know, it would be faster than being on a fresh set of hard tyres. Because at the moment the kind of loss for driving around on these tyres is maybe not quite as much as it should be. So coming up to the second of the checkpoints here, 6 tenths down on our best lap through the first checkpoint, but that's only really one corner, so it doesn't really represent too much. 1.6 seconds down now, despite the fact that that front left is completely worn, no tread on it whatsoever. We're only 1.6 seconds off our best lap. We've got another checkpoint coming up here just after the uphill off camber left hand corner, and we'll get an idea of how far we off are our lap, and then we're going to also take a look at the pit loss and the fuel. So 2.2 seconds, we're looking at about a 147.6 or 7, so definitely slower than a hard tyre, but maybe not by as much as I would like to see. I think it should be better off if it was more like 4 to 5 seconds. Yeah, where you'd be definitely forced into making that pit stop. And talking of that pit stop, do be very careful on the pit entry. It's a tricky one, it's awkward, it's on the racing line. You go over that yellow line there, you get a 3-second penalty. It's very easy to sort of carry too much speed in, particularly in this one, because you're going to be pitting from your soft tyres if you start on them. Very worn indeed. So yeah, I always say practice is not just for practicing going fast. Practice the pit stop a few times whilst you're in between races, just to make sure you're not picking up that 3-second penalty, and also maximising the time loss as well, because there is time to be gained coming into the pit lane here if you can kind of master it. Also, if you have a car kind of close behind you, try and give them an indication that you're maybe going to be coming into the pits, because it is on the racing line, and it'll maybe just give them a little bit of a warning to go a little bit wide around the last corner if they're not pitting themselves. Also, do be cautious on the pit exit. The car, once you regain control, will try to throw you off to the left hand side, so just have a little bit of steering lock applied as the control of the car is given back to you or you will get thrown over that line and again pick up a 3-second penalty. Your pit loss is around about 22 seconds. That's going to differ depending on how effective you are at going into the pits. As I said, there is a second to be gained there if you can master it. So coming to the end of the race here, we don't need to take a look at the hard tyres. We did do a hard tyre run earlier. We knew what sort of pace we could do. We know they're around about 1.8 to 2 seconds off a fresh set of soft tyres. So 18 minutes 10, but we did lose some time in the traffic. You're looking at around about 18 minutes as your finishing time. Definitely scope there for an extra lap. 11 laps would have been better here. Take us up to 20-minute mark. Opens up the strategy a little bit more as well. So moving on to the alternative strategy, and I think this is the one that most people are going to do. Just the way this one's going to work out, you're going to have much more benefits starting on the hard tyres and then moving on to the soft tyres. But just how far can you coax, or how many laps can you coax out of the soft tyres? So we did 6 on the previous run, and you can see that that front left was completely dead. Well, very, very worn by the time we came to the end of the 6th lap. So if you start on the soft tyres, 6 laps is going to be your maximum. I think most people will be more looking at 5 laps. But if you start on the hard tyres and you maybe pit as early as lap 3, do some tyre saving. Can you maybe coax 7 laps out of the soft tyres? Well, the answer to that is yes. It's exactly what we've managed to do here. So coming out, pitting at the end of lap 3, try to do 7 laps on the soft tyres, and just being very careful when it came to the right hand corners. You'll know what corners I'm talking about here. You've got the very fast downhill right hander. You've got this corner here, it's a right hand corner, the last corner as well. It is the sort of track where if you just take it easy around those corners, you can save that tyre, and therefore you should be able to coax 7 laps out of them if that is your plan. It's not going to be for everyone, obviously. Tyre saving differs between drivers. Driving style affects tyre wear as well. The car you're in, we're in the Nissan GTR here, which is obviously pretty decent on the tyres at the moment, one of the reasons I think this might be the car of choice for most people, just because it's good on those tyres. But yeah, we managed to get the 7 laps out of them. Don't think there was an 8th lap there. We did have to do some pretty hefty tyre saving to get those 7 laps as well. So as I said, it's possible, might not be for everyone, and we'll talk about the benefit of the undercut when we come to the strategy options. So I also wanted to do a test in an MR car, in this case the Porsche 911. They are very quick at the moment. The race around Catalonia is dominated by the MR cars. And yeah, so I thought, why not do a wee test, do a 10 lap run, just do a race simulation in the Porsche. We started on the hard tyres, we pitted at the end of lap 4. I wasn't particularly comfortable in trying to get 7 laps out of the rear tyres on the Porsche. So in the MR cars, the rear tyres tend to be more limiting. That does make them more tricky as the tyres wear, as the rear end tries to step out a bit more. In the Nissan GTR, you just get a little bit of understeer because it's the front tyres that wear more than the rear tyres. With the MR cars, those rear tyres wearing out a bit more can make it a little bit tricky, but again, just by being, you know, sensible on this second run here, we've managed to get 6 laps out of the soft tyres without a huge amount of issues. They are pretty worn, their car is getting a little bit oversteery and the lap times have dropped off fairly significantly, but 6 laps was possible in the Porsche, which tends to be the most stable of the MR cars. I think you'd have more trouble in something like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. But yeah, that is the car testing, that is the race simulation runs. Let's take what we've learned from them and we'll discuss the strategy options at this point. So there really is only 2 kind of strategy options. Obviously you start in the soft tyres, finish in the hards, or you start in the hard tyres and you finish on the softs. Now if you start on the soft tyres, you're looking at 5 to 6 laps. I think for most people 5 laps will be the way to go, and then just do, so I split down the middle and then 5 laps on the hard tyres. Now I wouldn't really recommend starting on the soft tyres unless you're in pole position, possibly P2 or P3, but anything below that I would be starting on the hard tyres, because if you come across anyone on the hard tyres starting on the soft tyres, the loss you're going to get trying to negotiate them is just not going to be worth it. So yeah, maybe in the top 3, start on the soft tyres, try and run away, open up a gap, and then get onto the hard tyres and try and hopefully you've made a big enough gap over the first part of the race that you can hold on. But you know, you're going to be losing time ham over fist to anybody behind you on the soft tyres until, you know, literally the 9th and 10th lap before lap times might start to equalise. I think most people should be starting on the hard tyres on this one. Now, you can do as little as 3 laps on the hard tyres and 5 on the soft. That definitely is possible, and the undercut benefit you're going to get from that is going to be massive. If you pit on lap 3 compared to somebody pitting on lap 5, you could get an undercut of around about 5 seconds, but obviously the disadvantage of that is that your tyres towards the end of the race are going to be significantly more worn and also a good bit slower. So there is an undercut potential here. I think lap 3 is the earliest you'll possibly go, but a lot of people will be looking at lap 4, and some people, if you're particularly bad on the tyres, you may well have to go to lap 5 on the hard tyres and then just again split it down the middle. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the strategy. Should be interesting enough, although I do have a fear that we're going to see a lot of people at the end of the race driving around on completely worn soft tyres. Particularly the aliens who'll go for that undercut and then just use their pace advantage they've got over other drivers to hold on at the end on completely worn tyres, which is a bit of a ridiculous situation, which is why I would like to see, once you completely wear one of the tyres down, you lose 5 or 6 seconds in the car, the lap times just drop off the cliff to avoid such situations. But you know, it is what it is. Let's move on to the lap guide. We're in the Porsche 911, coming down to the start finish line, and you're looking for the 200 board at Watkins Glen. Just before that, get the car into the camber, use a good bit of that kerb and get on the power as early as you dare. Don't run wide and you pick up a half-second penalty. You can use all of the orange and red kerbs. Up the hill now, this is where the power of the car is going to be important. Going side by side up through the hill can be a little bit tricky as well. It's you know, you can understeer off into the barrier, so do bear that in mind. Coming down to the bus stop chicane, you're looking for the 300 board. Again, just clatter the kerbs here. This is where all the lap time is gained by the aliens. They absolutely monster it through there, and they can gain so much lap time. The long right-hander, where it's the burns off that left tyre, there is camber on the inside there. Do try to get into that. It's 200 board for this downhill left-hander. Again, a little bit of camber on the inside can help the car round. You're looking for the last of the boards on the sort of black, red and blue boards on the left-hand side as your reference for the uphill right-hander. Another corner that takes the life out of those left-hand tyres. 200 board just after the 200 board for this corner here. Tightens on exit, you get on the throttle, easy to drift wide over the curb and pick up a half-second penalty. And 100 board for this off-camber left-hander. Be careful getting on the power, very easy to get on the power too early and spin the car out. Looking for the 100 board for the fast left-hander here. Again, a little bit of camber on the inside, but again, very easy to drift wide. And I use the large billboard behind the railing for the last corner as my reference. But that is a lap in the Porsche 911 around Watkins Glen. There'll be far better lap guides out there. This is very, very basic if you're looking to get far more detail and intricate on this one. But yeah, should be an interesting race, should be good fun, should bring out a lot of players as well. Watkins Glen in Group 3 is always very popular. People use it for practice for GTWS as well. And we also have the update coming at this week at some point, so it'll be interesting to see what that brings. But hopefully this guide has been useful in some way, shape or form. If it has, please hit the like button. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.